Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to our discussion. It's still a little bit distracting because now the centering part of it went off, and now part two is broken up and on the top line. But I hope you guys can live with that part of it. But our discussion today, this is the Healthcare Support Association of America that's invited you to this discussion today, and it's part two of a series that we have recently launched. Are you living with diabetes? With the emphasis on living. And for the most part, many who have diabetes or are pre-diabetic simply accept it to be just a way of life. It's just a fact of life. I know I grew up with it that way. My mother had diabetes, and I still remember her using a syringe to inject herself, most of the time in the abdomen. Other times it was in her inner thigh. And she was teaching us how to do it in case she was ever in trouble. And it was very distressing for a young person, a child, to be witnessing this, because remember, as a child, you pretty much have a morbid fear of anything that looks like a syringe. And I still, recall that. And it motivated me, though, to go on, put forth effort to make sure that I didn't come down with that dreaded disease, because it was horrible to see it happening. So our goal here today is to follow up on our discussion from last week. Last week, we talked about a number of things that can contribute to diabetes, a number of things that we're familiar with, most of them in the form of free radicals that reduces the body's ability to deal with immune system and autoimmune system issues. So we spent a lot of time on that. We're not going to focus so much on that today. I'm just going to briefly recap a little bit of it, and hopefully help you to broaden your understanding of the real causes of diabetes and the reason why none of us have to live with it. And I'm just going to back up again. My mom had it all my life. When my wife and I got married, her father had diabetes. Neither one of us wanted to get that disease. My mother died first from the complications, so-called complications of diabetes. And then my father also died. My wife's father died from the complications of diabetes as well. So either way, we decided we did not want to come down with that dreaded disease. So we set out to avoid it. And for the most part, back then, and we're talking about back in the late 80s, early 90s, the idea of it being an autoimmune disease just was not a very common thought. People didn't think of it as an immune system issue, but it in fact was. So we set out to avoid going down that road. We didn't want to allow the way that we were raised, the environment that we grew up in, or the emotional constitution that we had to predispose us to that. And so far, we have been able to avoid it. My sister, unfortunately, does have diabetes. So, and that's my younger sister. So fortunately, I've been able to avoid it, but she's doing well with managing it and controlling it. The picture that you're looking at right now is kind of illustrating what we've been told is a normal part of managing diabetes. Eat better food. Keep track of your blood sugar, test it on a regular basis, make sure you visit your doctor, with the emphasis on eat better food. Now, I'm asking a rhetorical question now. How many diabetics live inside that dish and only consume those kinds of foods that we see on that picture right there? Again, that's rhetorical. But I think if we were to, on the outside, make an observation, we can say truthfully and honestly that not all of them 100% do that. But even if they did, there's an issue that they have to contend with. The food itself, the deck may be stacked against us because the food has toxins in it. Because as you can see here from this picture, food is being sprayed with all kinds of toxins, including things like glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. It's designed to kill the weeds, and the scientists say that it's not being absorbed in the food, but that's simply not true. It really is. And genetically modified foods, that's an entirely different discussion in itself, and we will have a discussion about GMOs and contaminations in food, maybe in the coming weeks, as maybe part 3 or part 4 of this series, Are You Living with Diabetes? But we're encouraging everyone all of and our listening audience to focus on your body's natural defense system, because diabetes is autoimmune in nature. And there's some components of it that's completely because the immune system is confused. Anytime the immune system cannot figure out the difference between self and non-self, it gets labeled as an autoimmune disorder. Now, what's the big deal that the immune system can't distinguish between self and non-self? Well, the difference is anything that's non-self does not belong in your body. Anything that's not you shouldn't be there. Anything that's not nourishing you shouldn't be there. So a toxin, a free radical, some foreign component, a pesticide, a chemical, anything that is not natural to the body and is not nourishing the body, the immune system is the defense mechanism that's designed to get that component out of the body. That's what its role is. If you would please mute your line if you for the moment. If you have a question down the road, feel free to unmute your line, but I'd appreciate it if you would mute your line at this time. Now, last week we talked a little bit about how to beef up the immune system. The very foundation of the immune system centers around a molecule produced by every cell in the body called glutathione. And from this list that we showed you last week, diabetes was listed as a glutathione deficient state. Now, we had an entire discussion centered around the value of elevating the glutathione levels in the body in the fight against diabetes. Part of the reason for that is because diabetes takes care of free radicals. A free radical is trying to do damage to every cell in your body. Glutathione takes care of toxins that shouldn't be in the body. All of those things that represent non-self, glutathione has the ability to bind to those things, liquefy them, and pass them out of the body as waste. That's how important glutathione is. And all of these conditions you see have one thing in common. They're all referred to, at least in the physician's desk reference, as glutathione deficient states. Now, if that was the whole story, we'd all be fine if we just raise our glutathione levels. We'd all be fine. In fact, we'd all live a long and healthy life if it was only about raising our glutathione levels. The truth of the matter is, the deck is stacked against us. And here's how I'm just going to try to demonstrate that for you here with this Google results, search results here. I did a quick Google search last week. Hold on, I'm trying to get rid of this floating meeting controls on my screen. And the search that I did, I just put in diabetes medication causes diabetes, just to see what would come up. And millions of results, came up. I took a screenshot of this one. And you'll see that it says type 2 diabetes medication side effects differences. Then the second one, diabetes medications and their effects on weight. The third one, medications that may increase your risk for diabetes. So there's a tremendous amount of research out there, public information about how the treatment for diabetes can create problems. This one I thought was very interesting. 7 medications that may affect blood sugar control in diabetes. Think about it. There's certain medications that your doctor may be prescribing, or doctors commonly prescribe, that can directly affect your body's ability to control and manage blood glucose levels, especially if a person is a diabetic. And then this one I thought was kind of sad because it struck close to home. Medication-induced diabetes. An entire study was done on medication-induced diabetes. My mother-in-law right now has diabetes. She battled it, has been battling it for years. And then one day, her doctor admitted that the medication she gave her to control pain or control the inflammation in her eye or something that was going on actually caused her diabetes. My mother-in-law looked and said, "You mean to tell me your treatment gave me this disease? Why didn't you tell me I could get this disease from that medication? I would have tried anything else." To this day, she has to manage diabetes. We're pretty good at helping her with that, but she's approaching 90 years of age, so it's a bit of a challenge. And then this was the one that was most horrific to me of them all. There was a study done, and this is by the National Institute of Health. So this is the government's official library of medical documents and published scientific articles. This study was on how metformin use in type 2 diabetics, and it compared the increased risk of developing pancreatic cancer. So they did a clinical study on that, double-blind placebo study on that. So try to wrap your mind around that, folks. A very common diabetes medicine, metformin, they're studying it because they're concerned about the increased risk of getting pancreatic cancer. That kind of goes back to what I mentioned last week, where there was a study that was published in the, I think it was the San Francisco Chronicle, that diabetes medicine causes diabetes, and part of it is because they know that it does damage to the pancreas. And we'll give you more details on that as time goes on. But I'd like to just replay again for you a brief excerpt from the PBS article that I think everybody should view. Hang on a second. Try to bring that back up again. It's tried to disappear on me. It's only about 4 minutes in length, so it won't take very long at all. If we can actually find it. Okay, I'm going to try to start it. Let me know if you're looking at the movie, the video from PBS. If you're not seeing it now,
in the United States, it is estimated that there's about 100 million people with diabetes and pre-diabetes. 100 million people in the country affected by a blood sugar problem.
The economic impact of diabetes is devastating. We spent almost $350 billion on diabetes in the United States last year.
Diabetes, a chronic disease that's notoriously difficult to control. It can maim and even kill. A generation ago, less than 3% of Americans had diabetes. Today, it's almost 10%.
It is now predicted that half of the US population will have either diabetes or pre-diabetes by the year 2025.
Half. Living with diabetes today is a story of new discoveries about our food environment and choices.
As a 7-year-old coming from a third world country and getting free candy, I was like, yo, I'm so down for America right now. Like, this is tight.
It builds on exciting new progress in drugs and technologies that have made the disease more manageable.
This device is around the corner, and that's really what we're trying to do, is get much better therapy to people that requires much less of their participation and provides much better care.
And it reveals the terrible struggles that so many with diabetes still have, day in and day out.
So they was looking at me like, how are you even standing here on your feet? You're supposed to be in a coma.
So when we think about the impact to the system, way too many emergency room visits, way too many amputations. Why isn't there a war on diabetes?
And that's my favorite question that's raised in that PBS special. Why isn't there a war on diabetes? Why is it that it seems to be just par for the course? Now, I just want to spotlight one thing that was stated in that video, and you should watch the entire thing. Now, I'm showing you the title of it right there on the screen now. The doctor predicted, or scientists, but that by the year 2025, we're more than halfway through 2020 now. 50% of the population will be diabetic or pre-diabetic. 50%. That's every other person in this country would be diabetic or pre-diabetic. That should be very disconcerting to everyone, that is the statistic that we're heading toward. So the question I always ask is, does it have to be you? And why have so few people seem to do anything about this dreaded condition? Why has so little funding been spent toward it? And it was about 5 years ago that Jeff and Helen Ashby sat in my dining room and told me about this doctor here, Kedar Prasad. I'd never heard of Dr. Prasad before. Didn't know he existed. But the man is a very brilliant PhD. He spent over 40 years developing the exact right combination of micronutrients and vitamins mixed with multiple antioxidants that help neutralize harmful effects of inflammation and oxidative stress. Now, that's a complicated and technical sentence, but he spent 40 years. And the reason why that should be relevant to you is because think about it. Do you right now, anyone on the call, know the correct amount of selenium that you should have each day? Do you know how much is too much and how much is too little? Do you know how much is the safe amount of vitamin C that we could consume? What about vitamin D? Which kind of vitamin E is the best vitamin E for your specific condition? Which vitamin Bs are right for you? Is there a blood test that tells you what to get? And then if you did get that blood test, where do you go to get the best, the highest quality of those vitamins that the test tells you that you should take? I remember as a young man thinking, okay, well, I need a multivitamin, because I remember one day as a little kid, my mother gave me a Flintstone vitamin. And I remember that day I didn't get sleepy in class. I never forgot that. So years later as an adult, I said, okay, well, I need to go get me some vitamins. I'll go to Walgreens and get some vitamins. So I got the one for men. You know, when you're 20 years old, you want to get the one for men. I got the one for men, and I felt like death warmed over. It was the most horrible experience I ever had, because whatever was in that vitamin wasn't right for me. So when I learned that Dr. Prasad spent 40 years developing the right combination of micronutrients and vitamins and antioxidants that's designed to neutralize the effects, the harmful effects of inflammation and oxidative stress, that made my ears perk up. His target was for soldiers on the battlefield to remain in optimum condition while fighting a war. I wasn't interested in the war part of it, but if the United States government would spend $20+ million behind this vitamin, there had to be something to this particular vitamin. Dr. Prasad is the world's first radiation biologist. Dr. Prasad has published more than 250 articles. As a scientist or a doctor, if you're published one time in your life, according to Dr. Gutman, you feel like you've been accomplished. You have done something. This man has figured out 250 different things that other scientists in his peer group had never thought of. And he's also written 25 books. One of the books that he's written is How to Fight Diabetes with Vitamins and Antioxidants. This one, of course, is my favorite out of all the books that he's written. Also was a member of the Nobel Peace Prize nominating committee. He was the one who nominated Dr. Linus Pauling for his Nobel Peace Prize. What else did Dr. Prasad accomplish? Well, quite a few interesting things. not the least of which was while he was doing the research on his, for the government, there were 7 patents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different patents that were secured because of the uniqueness of the product that he developed for the United States government. Do you see the last one on the list? Micronutrients for the treatment of diabetes. All the others are very interesting and they're all extremely good and all extremely useful. But that last one, micronutrients for treatment of diabetes mellitus, that's the one that got my attention, and that's the one that should get your attention. But most importantly, the word right there, treatment, should really give you cause for pause, because normally nothing can be declared a treatment or cure for any disease unless the United States government allows it to be declared a treatment or cure for a disease. Now, are we trying to say that Dr. Prasad has come up with a cure for diabetes? Absolutely not. I'm not trying to suggest that at all. But you need to be paying attention to this particular one right here. The United States patent, I went and found it, by the way. Here it is. I got you a clip of it. The United States patent, micronutrient formulations for the treatment of diabetes mellitus. You can do the search yourself to find it if you want to. And there's Dr. Prasad's name. I took a couple of excerpts, a few clips from the actual patent itself. Notice what it says. Formulations for minimizing damage to at least one of cells, and this one here, organs. Organs. What's included in organs? Pancreas. Minimizing damage to the pancreas. I modified that. A system within the body of a subject afflicted with diabetes mellitus. And of course, it has to be the organ, right? Because that's the only organ that would come into play when it comes to diabetes. And then he goes on to give some statistics, and this was back in the year 2000, where it was reported that 16 million Americans were known to suffer from diabetes. 16 million? You know what it is now, right? This is 2020. The number is about 120 million that are diabetic or pre-diabetic right now. It was 16 million when he got this patent. It's 120 million now, heading toward 50% of the population, which is not hard, right? We're not far from there, because the United States population right now is what, 320 million, 350 million, and already 120 million? That's 1/3. So we're really only about 50 million away from it being 50%. And if COVID-19 has its way, the population in the United States is going to go down by quite a bit. So it's going to be easier to reach that number with diabetes. And sadly, diabetes is one of the contributing factors for a person not faring so well with COVID-19. Another reason to give attention to this dreaded disease. He goes on to say within his patent that the mechanism of action, or the way that his invention works, will involve some degree of protection for the pancreatic beta cells. Pay attention to that word right there, folks, beta cells. Beta cells is what is on the pancreas, and that detects the sugar levels in the body. The immune system attacks the beta cells, or the beta receptors. That's why it's autoimmune in nature. The immune system attacks the beta receptors. The pancreas can't tell what the sugar levels are, so the pancreas can't release the appropriate amount of insulin. That's one form of diabetes. That's why this is important. But again, his invention involves some degree of protection for of the pancreatic beta cells against free radical damage and from excess oxidative stress. That's important. Imagine you come to your house and you've got the key to open your door, but when you try to open your door, there's gum in there, or there's some corrosion that's built up in the lock. You can't get the key in there. What's the only way that you're going to be able to get in your house? You got to break the door down. You certainly won't use that key. That's the problem when it comes to the way the pancreas works. The beta receptors is not open and responding properly to the detection of glucose molecules in the blood cell. That's why a person has a hard time regulating their blood glucose levels. Another statement in Dr. Prasad's patent, right? The purpose of this formulation is mitigating, if not entirely eliminating, the symptoms of diabetes mellitus. Please, folks, wrap your mind around that. The United States government issued a patent indicating that this vitamin that Dr. Prasad discovered will mitigate, if not entirely eliminate, the symptoms, entirely eliminate the symptoms of diabetes mellitus. For me, that was like music to my ears. This was the thing that I've been looking for. This is what my wife and I have been looking for, because we wanted to help other people know that there's a way that they can avoid having to just live with diabetes. Don't just live with it, folks. Fight against it. Do something about it. Now, there's an inexpensive, cheap way to do it. But look at all the science behind it. Look at the research behind it. Look at the government-backed patents for this one particular product. That little green bottle right there, called MicroDaily with CoQ10, is packed with 40 years of research by Dr. Kedar Prasad. It's as simple as that. You look at the vitamin list on the back of the bottle, it really doesn't look like very much. It just looks like a bunch of vitamins. But again, I ask you the question, if you went to the drugstore right now, how much vitamin A does your body need every day? How much vitamin C do you need? How much E? How much B1? How much B2, B3? Now, assuming you have this list exactly, mind you, you have to figure out that this is the list that you need. But assuming you had this list, how much of each one do you need to deal with diabetes? And how much would it cost you to come out of that store with all of these and then figure out the exact right combinations? Dr. Prasad has already done it. And please, again, folks, don't just take my word for it. It really does work. He didn't rest on his laurels. He has since developed another formula that absorbs in the body even better. It helps the body to folate the B vitamins even better. So this has taken MicroDaily to yet another level. I'm not even going to tell you about the next one that's on the way. It's the MicroDaily EMF version that fights radiation to an even greater degree. Outside of Dr. Prasad's discovery, there is another very important product I think that everyone should give some consideration to, and it's called ImmuneRx. This is peptide immunotherapy. And the reason I suggest this one very highly is because remember what I told you about the immune system attacking the beta receptors on the pancreas? The reason the immune system attacks beta receptors on the pancreas is because the immune system is confused. It can't distinguish between self and non-self. MicroDaily is powerful for reducing free radicals in the body. It's phenomenal. But this peptide, you spray it under your tongue, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and it re-educates your immune system. It's like reinstalling the software so that the software starts from scratch and trains the immune system to stop attacking self. So it's like immune system intelligence. Highly recommend this. And the two of these products together, these two things combined together are just amazing when it comes to dealing with anything, including diabetes. We've had other discussions about things like COVID-19 and other viruses, but we'll leave that for another discussion. So there you have it, folks. And that's the core, the essence of the discussion about how you can avoid just simply living with diabetes. So let's take a couple minutes now to see if there's any questions that you would like to ask about anything that we've discussed so far. Any questions? And let me see if I can change the screen here. Victor Williams has a question, and we'll come back to this presentation in a few minutes. I've got a few more slides to show you, but I'm trying to come out of it here so I can see you all, okay?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Go ahead, Victor.
You mentioned the pancreatic beta cells.
Yes, sir.
Now, what's so special about the CoQ10?
The CoQ10?
Yeah, of the MicroDaily.
CoQ10 is an extremely good antioxidant. He put together a series of antioxidants. There's a combination of antioxidants in that formula that's extremely good. Back in the day, when HIV and AIDS was the thing, it was the only thing that had to do with the immune system, was HIV. Back then, naturopathic doctors and even some medical doctors admitted that CoQ10, along with certain other vitamins, was important for people who had AIDS. It was what would increase the glutathione levels and would promote the monoclonal expansion of T cells in the body. So CoQ10 is important, an important antioxidant component for the immune system. So good question, thank you. Judy Kendrick. Can unmute your mic, Ms. Kendrick. Okay, no, having trouble with that? We're trying to unmute you on our end also. Okay, there you are. Go ahead, Judy Kendrick.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, I wanted to know, when you have diabetes, earlier about cancer, do it cause cancer in down by the pancreas?
So your question, I'm not sure I heard your question properly. Say it again, please.
In the case of men, do they the diabetes cause cancer in the pancreatic area of the body?
Pancreas or the prostate?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're thinking about the prostate. But one of the things that it does, it won't necessarily cause prostate cancer, but yes, it can cause sexual dysfunction. So it can cause the medication itself can cause impotence. And that's one of the areas of concern for many men when it comes to getting diabetes. So that is an area of concern. However, diabetes itself does not lead to other forms of cancer. There's medications and certain treatments and other contributing factors that can cause cancer. That one study that was done at the National Institute of Health, they were comparing they were doing a study analyzing the impact of metformin on pancreatic cancer. So yes, the treatment can cause very serious problems for the pancreas and other organs, but as far as the prostate is concerned, in men, yes, it can cause dysfunction, very serious dysfunction. So hope that answers your question. Catherine Robinson, please. Let's try to unmute Catherine.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask about the new product, the peptide immunotherapy. Are you saying that would be wise to take with a person who has diabetes, to take that as well as the microdaily, or can they just take the microdaily by itself?
They can take microdaily by itself. Yes, they can do that.
And
however,
what is the difference with the immunotherapy and the immune RX? Are they interchangeable?
No, they're not interchangeable. They have two different mechanisms of action. I put it out there because our research has shown the two of them together support each other. So if a person is fighting diabetes, they also will help their immune system to be able to figure out not to attack the beta receptors. They'll get good results. The research done by the scientists who figured out that peptide immunotherapy, he came from Australia, a young PhD. And in his book, he writes about specifically how the immune system attacks those beta receptors on the pancreas and how that peptide reverses that phenomena over time. So the two most powerful things that impact diabetes is what we're presenting to you. That's the only reason why I'm sharing it with you. A person can choose one or the other. If you had to choose only one, if you could only choose one, I would recommend microdaily. But if you want to support your efforts to avoid and reverse the condition quicker and effectively add ImmuneRx to it. You don't need to stay on ImmuneRx. You can do that for just 90 days. You take 4 blasts under the tongue, 4 blasts under the tongue, once or twice a day. For the first week, every day. For the second week, every other day. For the third week, a few times a week. And going forward, once or twice a week. So like even now, I've cut back. We're in COVID-19 season right now, so I take it every day mostly, or every other day, to make sure that my body's able to fight against it. So I take them all every day personally. I hope that answers your question, Catherine.
Yes, it does, but one other thing I'm not too sure about. Okay, I understand clearly the microdaily and the immunotherapy. So where does the ImmuneRx come in?
ImmuneRx is immunotherapy.
Yeah, I understand that. So you could use either or.
You start with microdaily.
Okay, I'm definitely knowing that the microdaily is the #1 thing.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out which one, like if I had to recommend it to someone else as well as myself, which one, if I couldn't get both.
Microdaily.
I know the microdaily is a given, that's it. But now with the immune therapy, because from what the understanding of the information I got today and the video from last week's meeting, is important to keep that immune system. So you would need something for that. And I wrote down the ImmuneRx from last week. So I was trying to find out if I was going to recommend, should I recommend both those immune building supplements along with the microdaily, or they could interchange, one or the other.
I understand what you're saying now, I think. Can you see the slide right now?
Excuse me?
Can you see the slide on the screen right now?
No.
Okay. The slide on the screen right now, the heading says peptide immunotherapy.
Right.
And it's showing a picture of a bottle of ImmuneRx.
Okay.
So I think what's happening here is that you were thinking they're two different things.
Right. You hit it. Okay. Now I got it.
Yeah, ImmuneRx.
But now it comes in a spray.
Correct.
Okay. Now I got it. Oh, thank you.
Okay. You're quite welcome. Okay. Did I see another hand? Paula.
Okay, that's fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, so I personally take 3 different medications for my diabetes. I just recently received the microdaily, and I just had a question. For someone who's taking 3 medications and who probably, like my doctor say, her next step would be to start a once a week injection. How soon should I start seeing results with the microdaily?
If she could speak up.
Her question was, she's in a situation where she's heading toward becoming insulin dependent diabetic. And she wants to know if she starts on microdaily, how soon will she start to see results? I wish I could just show you a quick video of one gentleman who started on the product. And within just a few days, his A1C dropped by a point or 2. He was shocked. He went to see his doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, your sugar levels are great." And he said, "Wait a minute, what do you mean my sugar levels are great? I just had a sandwich. I cheated before I even came to the doctor. Right now, my sugar levels should be through the roof." They said, no, we checked it twice, Mr. Williams. Your blood sugar levels are doing good. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, Mr. Williams. That's what he said. That wasn't Victor Williams. That was Larry Williams. So he's in lives in the Georgia area. Nice gentleman. But there's a lot of folks, ma'am, who have
Albany, Jonathan.
Albany, okay, who have seen rapid results when they take it. Quick. This is not something that happens over weeks. They're seeing it in days, sometimes in hours. Okay? Hope that answers your question.
Okay. All right.
You're quite welcome. Oh, listen, and my sister-in-law, by the way, my sister-in-law was the first person I experimented on. When Jeff and Helen came to my house, I said, "Listen, Jeff, I've heard everything there is to hear about how things that's supposed to be good for diabetes. Stop telling me stuff. I need proof." He said, well, who do you know that's got diabetes? And I rattled off about a half a dozen names. He said, I'll send them all some product right now. And one of them that he sent it to was my sister-in-law, who had, in her words, out of control diabetes. The day after she took the product, she called them, Mike and Helen, Jeff and Helen, screaming that she could not believe that her sugar levels in the morning had dropped so dramatically. That was the next day after she took it. Now, understand something. Testimonials are purely anecdotal. Results may be atypical, and this is important for everybody to understand this. What happened to one person may not necessarily happen to you, except the scientists, the science and the research indicates there's a chance of it. But because we don't know all the other contributing factors to your condition, what other medications might be giving you diabetes that you're on, no one can really say for sure. Because remember, that's the reason why I showed you those screens. There are medications causing diabetes. So this product and no other product will do the impossible. Okay, hope that makes that clear for everybody.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Williams, please. Hold on, Ms. Williams. I think you're still muted. Can you unmute your device? Oh, there you are. Go ahead. Well, you were a minute ago. Try it again, Ms. Williams.
Okay.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering about the other micro daily product that you showed, and do we need to take both of those?
Excellent question. I will tell you this. When Dr. Prasad announced the release of that new product, I heard him say that there's only a small percentage of African Americans who have a problem folating those B vitamins, the particular thing that he was targeting in that. There's only a small percentage of African Americans who have a problem with it. Majority who had difficulty with that metabolizing that particular component were Europeans and Canadians. So if you think you've got some European and Canadian in your bloodline someplace, then go with the MAX formula. But I personally recommend go with the lowest cost first. If you don't get the results you want, then go to the MTHFR formula. But I don't want anybody to overspend more than they have to. So go with the lowest level first, then step it up. Now, once this micro daily EMF comes out, everybody should switch to that one for the radiation benefits. So that's the one you want to look for. You want to look for the red bottle when it becomes available. They're only taking pre-orders right now. And I think it's about $20 more than the regular micro daily. But if your budget can afford it, go to the red bottle. We'll talk about radiation on a future presentation. So I hope that answered your question, Ms. Williams.
Well, yes, it does. And the radiation, the one you were talking about radiation, my daughter has a large mass tumor they just found between her chest cavity and her lung, and it's not cancerous. And they were talking about doing radiation to get it out instead of breaking her ribs, her rib cage to get it out. So with that's coming up, could that possibly be something that could help something like that?
That's a very good question. You might want to contact me later on that one, but okay. I would encourage someone who was dealing with any kind of abnormal cell like that, even the green bottle. Understand something, folks, even that green bottle is very powerful.
Okay.
Have her take 6 capsules 3 times a day. Start there and make sure you get in contact with me later. 6 capsules 3 times a day.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Very good. And who else? I saw someone else had a hand up. Okay. You'll have some more. Oh, I know who it was. Martha Lawrence. Yes, please, Martha. You had some good results with micro daily, I think, in dealing with diabetes. Would you mind sharing your story, please?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi, Martha. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, I had some, I'm in here cooking. I had some very good results from Micro Daily. For myself, I had arthritis really bad, and my hands, my fingers were always very, very stiff. And it must have been about 2-3 days after I started taking Micro Daily, I noticed that my hands weren't stiff anymore. I could actually move my fingers. And that was a big plus for me because I couldn't hold even a pencil in my hand to write. And then also I had allergies, food allergies to dairy, peanuts, eggs, something I had been eating all of my life. And all of a sudden I was getting asthma-like symptoms from eating those things. And when I started taking Micro Daily, my allergies just went away. And now I can eat those things. I mean, I don't go overboard and I don't eat eggs every day, but at least I can eat them at least every other day. And that's a big plus for me because I really did love eating eggs. Now for my brother, I was listening to the young lady when she was saying about her diabetes. I have a brother who has diabetes really bad. He's on insulin and he takes some 10 other medications for his diabetes. Anyway, he's about 6'2". He lost so much weight from diabetes. I mean, he was a beanpole. And on top of that, his skin dried out. He was like drying up. So I called him one day. He lives in Virginia. I live in Delaware. And I asked him if he would be willing to try a supplement for his diabetes. And, you know, he told me, he says, right now, I'll try anything. He says, because I believe the doctors are just guinea pigging on me. They don't know what to do. So anyway, I ordered 4 bottles and I sent them to him. And he started taking them, and he told my youngest brother that I had sent him some pills to take. And I guess my younger brother, he just said, oh, okay. But then he went over to see my younger brother 3 or 4 days later. And my younger brother called me and asked me, what did you send Robert Van? I says, well, I sent him some Micro Daily. He says, you know something? It's like someone poured water on a dead plant and it came back to life. He said his skin looks better. He said he has more energy. He even came around to my house. He says, you know, he stays in the house in the bed all the time. So I was really, really glad that Micro Daily was able to help my brother. And a couple of weeks later, I checked in with him and he told me, he says, I'm doing fine, sis. I'm gaining weight back. And he says the testimonies from other people seeing me, just how good I look. He said, lets me know that this stuff really works. So Micro Daily, it works, especially with people with diabetes. It's a miracle supplement.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Martha, for being willing to share your stories. And just to add to that, for Catherine, she has not been, neither she nor her brothers have been using ImmuneRx. So Micro Daily by itself can get phenomenal results, no question about it. I throw the ImmuneRx in there so folks will understand that there's additional supplements that can also be added to your effort to fight diabetes. So, but thank you very much, Martha, for sharing your story. Joyce asked a question. She sent a question in on the chat. Are the directions for taking the supplements while taking other medications? Yes and no. Well, yes. What you want to do is, if you are taking any other medications, separate your vitamins by at least 2 hours. So just keep them away from each other if you're worried about any contraindication. But Micro Daily by itself is just a vitamin, and because it's just a vitamin, it's not even herbal in nature. It's vitamins. Then it should not contraindicate with any medication that a person is taking. So it should be fine with that. But if there's any concern about it, just keep it 2 hours apart, and you'll be okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So now Geneva Topping has another question. One last question. I got a few more slides I want to show you. Please go ahead, Ms. Topping.
Okay. Well, I'm taking Micah daily, but I want to know, I noticed you didn't show the package, you know, the one that you mix in the water. So is it any different, or I'm taking that now, should I change to the pills, or it's okay?
That's a very good question. And I hadn't showed it yet because it is part of this presentation. So there is a package and it is still very good. It's called Hydro. Yeah, and that's a good one. If you don't like swallowing pills.
I don't like swallowing pills.
Yeah, then you buy the Hydro. The Hydro is great. You just take one packet and just put it in a bottle of water like this, shake it up, and then just drink it down. And
Yes.
it's a perfect solution for folks who don't like taking capsules. However, I will say this: if a person is dealing with diabetes, we recommend you take 3 capsules twice a day. That way you'll get better results. So if you are using a Hydro, get 1 package of Hydro and 1 bottle of the capsules, because 1 package of Hydro, 1 packet in the bottle, open up 1 capsule from the green bottle and add it to it. Now you've got the equivalent of 3 capsules in the 1 bottle. So 1 packet and 1 capsule equals 3 capsules in the bottle of Hydro. So you can do it that way to get, you know, the 3 capsules for someone who's dealing with diabetes, okay?
But would just the package be okay without putting the capsule in it?
It can be. It can be. It just takes a little longer. Our experience has just shown that when someone takes 3 capsules or a packet and a half, that they get better results.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. So the question that most people ask by this point is, how do I start? And there's 3 basic categories that everybody will fall into. The first one is, well, I think I need more information, so give me some time. If that's the case, I encourage you to go to the website, healthcaresupport.org. You can submit questions there on the contact form, or you can click on Start and then fill out on the far left, you'll see another button that says Support. So click on Start and then fill out Support on the far left, and you can request a free protocol and additional reports that will help you to make your decision. But the main thing is talk to the person who invited you to this discussion, and they will help you. Category number 2 is the person who just simply wants to get started right now as a preferred customer and just wants to get the best price. It's very simple. These 2 packages, including the green bottle that I showed you before, the Hydro is on the left. That's the one that Mr. Geneva Topping was just asking about. That's the Hydro in the yellow package on your left. And the green package on the right is the same as the little green bottle. It just comes in those little punch out, in a little packet like this. That's, what do they call those things? When you punch them out, the pills are in the little punch packets that you pop out. So that's the only difference between the green bottle and this green bag. They're the same, but it's only $49.95 to buy it. The third category is a person who decides that they would like to do the business. Well, stick around after this call and we'll talk a little bit about the business for those who are interested in becoming distributors. But no matter which direction you go in, you can get the product for as low as $49.95. That's the regular micro daily, or the Hydro is $49.95. For the person who wants to do the business, you just add another $29.95 to your order, and then you're in the business. It really is that simple, okay? So get back to the person who invited you to this discussion, and they will help you to process your order. And if you know anyone who could have benefited from this discussion today, invite them to join us on our conference call. This is a national conference call now. It's a video conference we do every Saturday at 4 o'clock. The same Zoom link that you used today, you don't have to wait for a new Zoom link. Save that one and just share that with anybody else. The topic may change, but it's the exact same Zoom link each time. You can forward that to anybody else, and they're more than welcome to come and join us on this call each week. Now, next week, we'll do part 3 of our discussion on living with diabetes. Part 3, living with diabetes. We'll talk a little bit about some of the ancillary effects of diabetes, some of the things that it causes, things like neuropathy, things like heart disease, and the complications that may come in with even COVID-19. That'll be our discussion. So look for part 3 next week on Living with Diabetes. That's one screen that I didn't get to, as you can see. Okay, so thank you folks very much for joining us. Let's see if there's any last questions before we wrap up our discussion. Right now, I can't see the screen. Any final questions? We're just about a minute or two.
Just a reminder, if you could let us know about these recordings later.
Yes, I got a text message with your email address, and I have sent out one email that has the recording on stroke, the recording on cancer, the recording on heart disease, and part 1 of this. So we'll send you that email with all of those. If anyone would like to have any of the recordings of previous discussions, we are going to post them on healthcaresupport.org, so it's easy to find. We are going to post them on healthcaresupport.org. But if you don't want to wait for that, go to healthcaresupport.org, click on Contact Us, and just fill out the form requesting the recordings, previous recordings. And that will be a reminder. It's in our queue then, and we'll make sure that you get them.
So,
go ahead, Don.
Well, I just went up my arm to look at my heart, and my arteries are not clogged up, but my capillaries are not producing very well. So the microdaily helped the capillaries. They gave me a pill to start taking, and a friend said that's just serious.
Don, you might want to make sure that you add lymphatic flush to your diet too. You dropped off at the end there, Don, but you might want to add lymphatic flush to your protocol, okay? Yeah, you dropped out on us, Don, but let's talk about this offline, all right? Give me a call and we'll talk about that. And we need to get you on lymphatic flush in addition. Kathy Greer, you have a question or comment?
I have a question. When you're showing about the patents, you have 2 patents on hearing loss. So my question is that also connected with diabetes, hearing loss? And what, if you like have a parent or something that is suffering from hearing loss, what does that mean that there's a patent on hearing loss?
That's a very good question. Dr. Prasad was focusing on what would benefit soldiers who were in close proximity to artillery and gunfire. They often suffered from tinnitus and other hearing issues. And his patent proved that there was a measurable improvement in hearing function and a measurable reduction in tinnitus for those who took it. So it's not a cure for deafness, but there was a measurable improvement in the symptoms.
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Catherine Robinson.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned about a new product that's going to come out in the red bottle, the EMF.
Yes.
With, and you mentioned something about some have already signed up for it.
Yes, yes. You can take pre-orders. They'll take in pre-orders for it right now. Are you a consultant already or a health advocate?
I'm a health advocate.
Just log into your back office and you can place an order, a pre-order for the microdaily EMF right now.
And how does that with the MTHFR?
It has all of the components of the MTHFR and then more radiation, anti-radiation. Dr. Prasad and David Nemelka, the owner of Engage Global, is preparing us for the rollout of this 5G. So 5G is going to bathe our neighborhoods with radiation at levels never before seen. It won't be 5G, it'll be more like 60 gigahertz. It won't be 5 gigahertz. It's going to be more like 60 gigahertz. It's going to be off the Richter scale. So cancer is about to explode. So that's recommending everyone go to the EMF version, the red bottle, as soon as it becomes available.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome. And there was one other question I see in the chat. How long will the package last? If a person is taking the minimum dosage, 2 capsules, twice a day, that one package for $49.95 will last an entire month. If you're diabetic and you decide to take what I'm recommending, not what the company's recommending, but what I'm personally suggesting, 3 capsules twice a day, then that 1 bottle will last you 3 weeks. So what you have to do is order 3 bottles for 2 months. So to last 2 months, you need 3 bottles. So you'll use a bottle and a half for 1 month. You use a bottle and a half the next month. Mr. Williams, go ahead, please, sir. Don't forget to unmute your device.
That red bottle, that EMF, what does that stand for?
Electromagnetic force, I believe. Yeah. So it's all the offshoot of motor and electronic stuff that's killing us with radiation.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Low dose ionized radiation, exactly. And by the way, one of his patents is for the treatment of the repair, cell repair for damage of cells caused by radiation, ionized radiation. So they actually proved that your DNA that's damaged by radiation is repaired using microdaily. So this is definitely the product you want to be on, period, if you want to make sure that your body's not affected by radiation. By the way, this is all radiation. You know, the computers that we're on is all radiation. It's all around us now. It's everywhere. So we are being affected by, and diabetics even more so because they're immunocompromised by definition. Okay, so thank you all folks very much for joining us. And for the record, once again, my name is Jonathan Jones. And please, folks, remember something. I am not a medical doctor, and I don't claim to be one. And the suggestions that I give you is my own personal recommendations. Is based off hard research that I have, my wife and I have personally uncovered. If you'd like to have any of the sources, just send an email, healthcaresupport.org. I'm the research director for the Healthcare Support Association of America. I highly recommend that you seek the competent medical advice of professionals that you trust, rather than taking advice from someone that you don't know. However, I can guarantee you that the information that I've presented here is 100% factual to the best of my knowledge. I believe every single thing that I've said to you, and I actually take it myself and recommend it and give it to my family members everywhere in my entire family, because we believe they are as more effective than I'm even telling you. So thank you folks again for joining us. Look forward to seeing you next week. Bring a guest with you next week. We need to get the word out about things that folks can do, especially those who are living with diabetes. You folks have a good day. Anyone interested in the business, just stay on the line now and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the business side of MicroDaily. The rest of you folks, feel free to leave. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Very good.
Okay, it looks like the folks who wanted to leave have done so. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the business side of Engage Global. Engage Global is the company that manufactures the product MicroDaily. They are the sole exclusive and sole distributor for the product. They are the manufacturer for MicroDaily. Dr. Kedar Prasad works for them. That's the only company that he directly represents is Engage Global. I learned about this company, it's been about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and started using the product and recommending the product to many folks. We've seen a lot of very good results with it. The only reason I did not continue to build a business centered around the product was just because they still had a few things that they had to work out, a few kinks that they had in their business model that just was not quite right. They have smoothed out a lot of those kinks. They've moved into a larger building. Their customer service has improved. Their fulfillment has improved tremendously. The product is not only as good as it was 5 years ago, it's even better than it was 5 years ago. At that time, it had only been released to the general public for just a few years. Prior to that, only the soldiers, the United States government and the Army were the only ones who had access to the product before that. Now, we all have access to it, and it works. We're seeing results over and over and over again. More and more people are benefiting from it. We have had some folks who have had serious issues with abnormal cells, even that have benefited. We've heard many interesting testimonials about that. And you can't go wrong by adding high doses of this product if a person is dealing with abnormal cell growth in their body. But now, as far as the business is concerned, here's what they've done. David Nemelka has done a great job in making it so that if you want to simply add $300 or $400 to your income per month, you can do that very easily with this product and this company. The reason is because he's made it simple for a person not to have to build a network. You don't have to be a network marketer to make this work. Hang on, folks, I forgot to stop that